Times magazine, forgive whatever, but maybe that constellation of outlets is trying to balance itself out, because I'm seeing some discussion in the pages. I haven't read it all yet. I was even going to suggest that for Thursday we all maybe pick one of these and read about it, because Ta-Nehisi Coates has a new book coming out, apparently, that's being discussed a lot in terms of about his trip to Palestine. And so one of the stories that Erica had for us, in fact, says here on CBS Morning's Twitter page, Ta-Nehisi Coates' new book, The Message, is a trio of interconnected essays that examine how the stories people tell or avoid telling can shape and even distort reality. I am most concerned always with those that don't have a voice. So if we could just take a quick, I don't know if there was a specific moment, we can just take a quick.
Should be nothing less than changing the world. Why do you feel like writers should bear that responsibility?
Saving the world. Saving the world. Just to be really specific. Writing is how we interpret so much of everything.
Does he say something about the Middle East?
Publishing house goes away. The backpack of a smart guy, bits. And is it because...
I have asked repeatedly in my interviews whether there is a single network, mainstream organization in America with a Palestinian American bureau chief or correspondent who actually has a voice to articulate their part of the world. I've been a reporter for 20 years. The reporters of those who believe more sympathetically about Israel and its right to exist don't have a problem getting their voice out. But what I saw in Palestine, what I saw on the West Bank, what I saw in Haifa in Israel, what I saw in the South Hebron Hills, those were the stories that I have not heard. And those were the stories that I was most occupied with. I wrote a 260-page book. It is not a treatise on the entirety of the conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis.
But if you were to read this book, you would be left wondering, why does any of Israel exist? What a horrific place, committing horrific acts on a daily basis. So I think the question is central and key. If Israel has a right to exist, and if your answer is no, then I guess the question becomes, why do the Palestinians have a right to exist? Why do 20 different Muslim countries have a right to exist?
My answer is that no country in this world establishes its ability to exist through rights. Countries establish their ability to exist through force, as America did. And so I think this question of right to Israel does exist. It's a fact. The question of its right is not a question that I would be faced with any other country.
But you write a book that delegitimizes the pillars of Israel. It seems like an effort to topple the whole building of it. So I come back to the question, and it's what I struggled with throughout this book. What is it that so particularly offends you about the existence of a Jewish state that is a Jewish safe place and not any of the other states out there?
There's nothing that offends me about a Jewish state. I am offended by the idea of states built on ethnocracy, no matter where they are.
Muslim included.
I would not want a state where any group of people laid down their citizenship rights based on ethnicity. The country of Israel is a state in which half the population exists on one tier of citizenship, and everybody else that's ruled by Israelis exists on another tier, including Palestinian Israeli citizens. The only people that exist on that first tier are Israeli Jews. Why do we support that? Why is that okay? I'm the child of Jim Crow. I'm the child of people that were born into a country where that was exactly the case, of American apartheid. I walk over there and I walk through the occupied territories and I walk down a street in Hebron, and a guy says to me, I can't walk down the street unless I profess my religion. I'm with another pastor. No. I want to. This is very, very important. It is extremely important.
Yeah, let me lay it down.
I'm working with the person that is guiding me is a Palestinian whose father, whose grandfather and grandmother was born in this town, and I have more freedom to walk than he does. He can't ride on certain roads. He can't get water in the same way that Israeli citizens who live less than a mile away from him can.
And why is that okay?
Why
is that? Why is there no agency in this book for the Palestinians? They exist in your narrative merely as victims of the Israelis, as though they were not offered peace at any juncture, as though they don't have a stake in this as well. What is their role in the lack of a Palestinian?
I have a very, 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 very moral compass about this. And again, perhaps it's because of my ancestry. Either apartheid is right or it's wrong. It's really, really simple. Either what I saw was right or or it's wrong. I am, for instance, against the death penalty. What the person did to get the death penalty, it really doesn't matter to me. I don't care if they were selling a nickel bag of marijuana or if they were a serial killer. I am against the death penalty. I am against a state that discriminates against people on the basis of ethnicity. I'm against that. There is nothing the Palestinians could do that would make that okay for me. My book is not based on the hyper-morality
What's the last
of the
message you
Palestinian
want
people.
in lessons? Because many people feel it's complicated. You say it's not complicated. Less than 20 seconds. What's your message?
Less than 20 seconds. I want people to read the book.
Well,
Yeah.
And I don't make the assumption that somebody would just read the book and have read nothing else about Israel
Okay.
and Palestine.
You're still invited to High Holidays. I'll see you at the show.
I'm not mad, but it was very simplistic in terms of its comeback.
Really? Oh,
Well, because I would want him to. I mean, when someone opens up the question of
you're right. Yeah.
suggesting what have the Palestinians done in terms of not accepting peace, I think that's a propaganda statement, as if somehow the Palestinians have rejected peace, when what the Palestinians have rejected is settler colonialism and having their land stolen and taken away. Now, obviously, he can't cover that whole thing within the interview, and I completely obviously agree to, part of what he may be attempting to do is to meet people where they're at. People can hear about apartheid and say they're against apartheid. They can hear about Jim Crow and say they're against Jim Crow. But maybe people are not, maybe his feeling is that he cannot break down solar colonialism in a very short time. However, I would have made that Jewish white man turn red in the face.
I hear you.
Because I think obviously he's trying to do that whole thing where he's basically advocating that Jewish people deserve a homeland. If they deserve a homeland, and it's in Germany against the people who actually murdered and killed them and genocided them. It is not a land. They don't deserve a homeland on the land of other people. And then they have a right to do everything that they've been doing, i.e. the same as the United States, i.e. is what was attempted in South Africa, i.e. is what happened in Australia and several other places. So I think but again, I'm not mad at him. I just wanted a better answer than kind of the answer of I'm against apartheid, because I think it's more than that.
100%. I don't disagree with any of that. I'm definitely biased just by the performance in that space, in that time, in that moment, in that way. I thought he did very well. And I'm just trying to keep it together and focus on all that. And I also know I'm not aware that overtly he shares your or my politics.
He probably does.
I'm just not.
Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah. His his father's a Panther.
I know. Yeah.
I know all his.
Oh,
stuff.
I know.
Yeah.
And no, because again, part of my point is that when Todd and I had this uncomfortable moment when we were editing the critique of Marable, and Paul asked us if we wanted to include his son's essay, and we read the essay and was like, nah, it's not.
You turned down a coach's essay?
We had to tell Paul himself, we can't have, we said, because it was just all due respect.
Yeah.
And the way I remember it, which is, was that I tried to convey to Paul that you called me with a certain aggressive point that you wanted us to make. So you blew the war horn, so to speak, or whatever, and then call me, and and then you send us your son's essay, which is, he compared, it was one of them Obama's an extension of Malcolm X essays, and it was like. So, and he agreed, and he was cool with it. And so, so that's why I'm saying I don't think overtly so I don't know what he privately feels, but I've never met or spoken with him. But it's I just didn't know overtly that I may be wrong. And I'm just maybe biased that I don't know that I would be able to keep it together that well in that space to do what you do
Oh,
well and
similarly.
would
No, I
do and make
similarly.
that point there. So that's, but I think you're absolutely right. And then yes, Yipper, always consistent. I appreciate you. I'm biased. I want everyone to read his book.
But I also think
I
he's
did think
being
that was a pretty
strategic.
funny and good answer. Like if
Yeah,
you're only gonna give me 20 seconds and I'm here to promote my book, then yeah, I'm gonna say read my book.
yeah.
Motherfucking and
I
then he
think
took
he's being
another shot.
strategic,
Yeah.
but I also think he is. I mean, he's been such a fan favorite of a large section of liberal media. And
Yeah.
I think it is a big thing for, I mean, I think it's similar, but even bigger than like Mark Lamont Hill in terms of his stances and what it's cost him in terms of being on mainstream media. I think Coates is taking a similar risk, if not even a bigger, I think a bigger risk because, you know, his book, the book, I guess that came out doing, for lack of a better way to say it, the Black Lives Matter era,
Yeah.
I think a letter to his son, which
Mm-hmm.
again, when I read it or parts of it that I did read, I was like, this was not read. This was not meant for me in terms of my politics. But he was
That's
lifted
what
up.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
And his reparations thing too.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. He's not. That's all I'm saying. I don't know. I don't know of him to
Yeah.
be.
I think he
But
knows
I
that he's
admit,
being
yeah.
strategic. That's my sense of this guy. I think this guy is again, never met him, never spoken to him either, to my knowledge. Met his dad a couple of times and spoke to him, but I think he's super knowledgeable of the world around analysis wise and but I think he's also strategic around building a literary career um, that moves him close to a James Baldwin figure, but not quite crossing over into a Baldwin camp yet, where he just don't give a, you know, where he'll just say what exactly he means without the niceties. And I think for him, but I still think, even with that said, I have not read this book. I don't know what's in this book. But I think it is a daring attempt for a Black writer who is in a position that he's in to potentially, and I hate this terminology also that I'm about to use, but to quote unquote humanize Palestinian struggle, not for us, but for white folks. And I'm like, good luck with that. You know what I mean? So that's my
Well,
only thing.
and that's where I'm with you again. And that's sort of, I think, where I'm also feeling some of the discomfort because I know ultimately that's what he's there to do. That's the audience he's looking to reach there. There's not a Black and brown and Palestinian audience watching that show waiting to get this recommendation to read a book from him on these issues. So, and I know the same thing with the New York Magazine write-ups. They're not, that's who they're talking to. So yeah, like you said, good luck with that. And I always had this in just another quick in grad school. My wonderful dissertation committee had suggested that I take this chapter and submit it to the New York Times and you know get a publication. And I said, but that's not who I'm talking to.
Mm-hmm.
And it caused like a whole conversation and a ruffle and a
And
you
nor were
know
the Times the Times will look at your thing and give it right back to you. Because part of what the Times does is that I don't think I think part of what the Times does, obviously they choose liberal left people to promote what they consider to be the out of edges of a logical argument. And that's why, like, you know, the book about Malcolm was not reviewed, or if it got reviewed in the New York Times, it would be a negative review. But what they do these days is they don't even review it because they don't want to give it that kind of attention. Instead, they review books like A Marable, like what was the Les Payne's book, the one that him and his daughter wrote, books that are going to be considered to do exactly what you like, that ties Malcolm either to a lineage that is leading us towards Obama, or to make Malcolm seem to be extreme, not necessarily extreme only in politics, but psychologically a slightly unhinged, having, again, they do these things, these Oedipus complex things. So I you know, the Times plays a particular role in the propaganda. I see no way in which the Times would give a favorable review of your book.
no, it wasn't. So it wasn't. it was just an argument about it. It wouldn't have been about the book, but it would have been about what I was arguing in my dissertation about media or whatever, and mixtapes actually. But my point wasn't that I would be worried about them rejecting it. My greater fear was what would I have had to do to my own argument to get them to accept
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
And that's where I was like, I'm not talking to them. And it was just the reaction of how could you not want something in the New York Times? And I was like,
Well, that was
I-
the one thing about what's the guy who was talking about he used to work for the Times. He was a
Jason
editorial writer.
Blair.
No,
Brother.
new,
Oh,
the
okay.
new,
I thought
new
that's what
guy.
you were. Okay. Yeah.
The new guy who
I don't know. Yeah.
no, you do know what I'm talking about. The guy who wrote the book about Black folks moving to the South recently. Editorial, the chat probably knows. Editorial writer,
The chat definitely knows.
well-known like New York Times editorial
Moving to the
writer.
South.
Yeah, he took the New African Charles Blow. Thank you so much.
Oh,
So
the undefeated chat. Thank
Yeah.
you, everybody.
So they did a documentary on his book, and he went back to the New York Times to talk to the current editors, and one was Black and it was one who was very high up, about the idea. And he used a semi-nationalist argument in terms of, shouldn't we be building our own? And, they were just flabbergasted with the whole idea that he would even think that. Is like, I work for the New York Times. You know what I mean? Like, and using that old language of like changing from within. But those folks were so high up on the hog of the elite status of being what they think is in charge of the biggest newspaper on earth, that any idea whatsoever of succumbing and starting a Black paper or doing something that with a Black focus, they just immediately it was just like, what are you, crazy? Why would I do that? And again, thinking they have some influence here, and at the Times, it's like, you have no influence, and nor do you have the ideological disposition to even know what you would do with that influence if you even thought you did have it. And if someone saw you trying to influence or use that influence, they would just fire your Black ass, right? And I think they know all that anyway. But I think the fact that Blow, again, who I think softens the idea of what it means in terms of the history of the Republic of New Africa, which he claims, he's like, oh, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about for political electoral power. So he basically, again, softens that edge by using the exact argument, their exact argument or whatever.
And to remind everybody, I'm just saying to do this so we can more effectively vote for Democrats.
Exactly. That's exactly. Because the people he had on were like, all the Democratic folks that are held up as our leaders and stuff like that. So yeah.